that you are attending with Bangalore Lockdown Series. So L&D Global is a worldwide network of learning and development practitioners. The network has over 30,000 members across industries, counties, countries, and cultures. Our mission of L&D Global is to collaborate, co-create, and contribute. So the agenda is to continue the learning. Before we start, let me tell you something about our speaker for today. Mr. N.M. Sharma is the Chief Research Officer, U Plus Inc. He is also an analytics expert, and that is what he's going to be, training us on, giving us information on about today. He's also an expert on outsourcing and offshore team setup. He's a serial entrepreneur and a startup advisor. Okay, and Mr. Sharma, we're looking forward to your session greatly today. Thank you so much for being here with us. So over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Smita. So, very good evening. And in a normal course, other than the current unfortunate situation, I'm sure Friday evening is very difficult to hang on for a learning session. But I'm happy that some of you have decided not to quarantine your brains. And that's a good news, because I'm actually talking to a fraternity of people who belong to this HR group, and L&D being part of HR, have a very big responsibility in the current context of where we are and what we need to do and how we need to gear up. So I will take you through a couple of information and what can be done in analytics, who gets benefited, why analytics is easy. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, because without analytics, I'm not sure if we are going to gear up with the time that is being lost. Once again, thanks L&D for the opportunity for interacting with the most important fraternity of this decade, I would say, especially in the current context of where we are. Let us look at some big picture. 22% of organizations already leveraged AI to deliver HR solutions. When you say leveraging AI, which means it's much higher and they've really moved ahead in terms of utilizing the data on the go and augmenting the data to take decisions and using artificial intelligence to augment the functions within HR. Already time is lost, and all of you know that in this past couple of months, things have not been as great as they should be, which means there is a huge pressure in terms of reducing the timeline. And most of the people in talent acquisition would actually know, on the lighter side, you never get any requirement on time, nor you are given time to do the proper recruitment, which means every operations person, every business person would want data, would want people like yesterday types, which means it's all the more important to focus on the relevant data, critical data, and look at how can you use the data to make sure that you reduce the timelines. Most of the old and new age companies are revamping their HR programs by adapting digital tools, and we are seeing it coming to life, and especially in the past month. And these kind of sessions are example or precedents for the digital tools that are going to be adapted and that are already adapted. The thing is, it's almost 75% of companies. When I say 75% of companies, anybody having more than 10 to 15 team members within an organization have already started adapting digital tools in some name, form, shape, or the other. What is expected is in terms of the cost reduction. So adapting digital into HR practices and analytics is part of digital. There is expectation of a 3x reduction in the overall operations of the organization by adapting into the HR practices and adapting digital in HR practices. I'll come to that. So what does it mean? It means that anybody in a HR function at this point in time actually have multifold job opportunities if you have analytics competency and if you build analytics competency within your organizations. Now, What comes top of the mind? Analytics is actually very easy. You see a lot of colors, a lot of various ways of looking at things, right? But when you think analytics, it is probably not as scary. For some, it's scary, but trust me, it is not scary. It's all about understanding the fundamentals of data, understanding the fundamentals of your role, understanding the fundamental KPIs, understanding how you can use data to augment your decisions. Both in the training program that we are planning to have, and today, I promise I'll try to keep it as simple, not as seen on the board, but much simpler than that. Most of the people get scared only by looking at all these numbers. But trust me, analytics is actually much easier than what we think. Analytics is an encompassing of multi-dimensional data that is being used, right? Data could be your transaction data, structured data, unstructured data, right? Essentially understanding some simple mathematics, some simple statistics, predictive modeling, and machine learning as you evolve in knowing analytics is what is going to help the HR fraternity to focus on HR analytics, and that's what we're going to talk. So you have to start somewhere. Where do you start? Let's see. In the evolution of trying to understand data right through data management until the optimization in terms of cost optimization, recruitment optimization, L&D spend optimization, return on investment optimization. When you have to reach to that optimization, there has to be some starting point, and the starting point is understanding the data and how do you make use of that data. Analytics is a combination of science and art, and I've believed in it for a long time, and I believe that without the domain knowledge, which is the art, without the ability to interpret and draw actionable insights using the domain knowledge, the science is of no use. And having only science is not going to give a meaningful pattern or ability to take an actionable insight. So essentially, analytics is a combination of science and art, and science being data, tool, and technology, and art being your domain knowledge. While there are organizations who are good at reporting, there is definitely a lot of information in silos. But what is important is to have a methodology and an ability to understand the data and analyze and draw insights out of that data. Predictive modeling, good news is all the forecasting and predictability is now made easy because of a lot of other sophisticated tools which have come with pre-built models. All that we need to know is to how to use that model, how to use the tool, and how to get an actionable insight out of that whole data that we already have. Predictability is the key, whether it is astrology or whether it is analytics. Please be rest assured that you can only predict up to 70 to 80%, but directionally you will be awesomely right because you are using data to take decisions. It has always been true. I'm sure HR fraternity would definitely agree with this in terms of our human ability in terms of reasoning. We only have to see a data, or we need to see an event or come across something, and our human brain is good at reasoning. Fine. All along, reasoning was good. Using some rudimentary tools was good. And using the human intelligence to enable human capital is good. Everything is fine. But then what is important is to ask yourself a question. Are you measuring these data that is available in various forms of dashboards, scorecards, and are you looking at in terms of standardization and improvements being recognized and so on and so forth? Because next level is all about measuring. Once measuring is done, gone over those days, probably even in the current context, what becomes extremely important is how are we defining the KPIs in the new avatar of the world, where you have the work from home on the increase. So how are you going to get the cohesiveness across the functions, and how are you getting the process improvements done, either within the functions or across the functions, and how are you creating the accountability so that people remotely working across the world can still be made accountable and drive more and more of understanding of the sophisticated tools. Once you start using the most powerful function within an organization, I believe, is the HR function, because implementing the actionable insights is extremely important, and to keep a tab in terms of, are we implementing the decisions based on the data, and are we looking at the people and business outcomes equally well? Because today, while all the other data about individual is very good, but ultimately in the work from home situation or in the remote working situation, what becomes extremely important in terms of the business outcomes? Yes, as an organization, are we using predictive models to predict? And are we bringing the cultural shift? The cultural shift is possible only when you start influencing the organization in driving the change for achieving the strategic goals, and also making sure that at an enterprise level implementation of analytics is happening. As HR fraternity, irrespective of the function that you are there within HR, if you are going to demonstrate that you are using data, using analytics for making actionable insights and taking decisions based of data, and you're able to augment data to your making decisions, then you have arrived. What will happen much faster than not is enterprise level functional maturity of using analytics is going to be imperative, important, and it is going to be the key driving force for organizations to perform better in the current context. Now, upskill and reskill to save more. Yes, within an organization, L&D has got such a huge responsibility, especially in the current context, to upskill and reskill, because data shows that once you upskill and reskill, you save more than 30 to 50% of the talent acquisition cost, and overall people cost would reduce. However, it is inevitable to achieve career growth within your functions also if the analytics and technology understanding is not in line with what the world is moving, which essentially means for each individual investing time in analytics would mean exponential learning resulting into exponential earning. What all kind of analytics can be done in HR? This is only a sample representation of some of the HR analytics that can be done, whether in terms of capability analytics, competency acquisition, employee churn, recruitment channels, HR financial analytics. So I don't remember calling HR a support function anytime during my so many years of career, because I firmly believe that it's not a support function. It is a core function of an organization and a business unit on its own, because the actions that are taken by the HR are directly impacting the performance of the organization. So HR financial analytics becomes extremely important to understand everything around the recruitment to training and employee performance, and all these analytics can be done using data, using simple tools, and making it a practice in a day-to-day life, and ask ourselves a question: did we use data to take a decision, or did we use only a gut? However, I want to reiterate that the HR fraternity should never give up the domain expertise in terms of being able to understand an individual with a 1 hour of interaction, because that's a skill, that's a acumen that the HR fraternity would bring in. But then what facilitates is a lot of data that is being available, and the ability to use the data and make meaningful outcomes, and then have a relational value between what you see and what is your gut about a particular decision that you take. Using of NLP is already started. Most of you must already been exposed into it, whether in terms of resume matching, whether in terms of optimizing the recruitment channel investments, whether in terms of identifying knowledge gaps, whether in terms of determining risk indicators. All these things are for real right now, and the future is now. In the training program that I have put together, I made sure that all these are actually covered in a way that a normal HR person, without requiring your Pythons and your machine learnings, can actually start using on a day-to-day basis for taking decisions. Adoption of enterprise level analytics will be the new normal, as I told you earlier. Second thing, strategic thinking becomes a core. Right now, organizations are looking at how will 2025 look in the distributed way of working. It's going to be extremely important, and a lot of data is already being gathered to see what will be the behavioral changes, what will be the changes to the work types changes, productivity changes that will happen in the next 3 to 5 years horizon. Opportunity for people who are domain specialists. Again, domain specialist is important, using technology and understanding. Remote workplace is the order of the day, and it is only going to be on the increase, and there are organizations like TCS looking at 75% of work from home in 2025, right? Only 25% will work in office in 2025. Upskilling will be a continuous process and with shorter timelines, unfortunately. When I say unfortunately, that means that it's going to put a huge pressure in the L&D system to make sure that each individual is upskilled, but the learning curve is as short as possible, because there is no fancy of time left for us in terms of increased learning curves. But understanding and adapting analytics will start with asking simple questions. Now, in a day-to-day life, if you have to put a few questions, and those of you interested in learning HR analytics, please come with some questions when you come to the session, because whatever question you have will get answered in a way that is easy for you to implement for all the other questions that you have, and everything starts with the question. There are two options. Either you ask a question and then look for the opportunities of where to get the data, what kind of data, what is a relevant data, what is a relevant tool, how do we use it, and move forward. Option one. Option two is only to start looking at data and not worrying about what are we trying to solve. Most often than not, this is what happens. When a report is thrown in front of you, when an outcome is thrown in front of you, you really wonder as to from where did this data come from. And sometimes people actually end up using a wrong data and then feel bad that they didn't get the right outcome. So for any understanding and adapting of analytics, what is important is to start asking questions. Can we accurately forecast our workforce needs in the future? From where does our best talent come from? What is the cost of turnover to the business if this is going to be the mix of people? How does the organization measure on quality of new hires? In the current context, this question is going to be completely relevant, because this is what is going to drive the KPIs and the measure of performance for the HR fraternity. And understanding the analytics methodology is key. Don't have to become machine learning experts, don't have to become Python experts. All that you need to do is understand the analytics methodology. In the training, that's what we are going to do, is teach you what is the actual analytics methodology. In simple terms, a takeaway for today is any analytics that you want to do is identify the question. What is the pain point? Build an hypothesis using your domain knowledge, past experience, and try to put some root cause according to you, what you think could have been the reason for that kind of a result. Assess and collect the data. Some data is available, some data is not available. But if you know what data is available and what data is required, that is a good starting point. And in the training, we will tell you how to treat a missing data. Data consolidation and preparation and analysis. And on the lighter note, but I'm sure most of you will agree, and it is common for any organization in any industry. The left hand does not know what right hand does. Your recruitment data at the time of onboarding somebody is in a different place. Your training data and upskilling competency is in a different place. Payroll promotions data is in a different place. Your exit interviews data is in a different place, right? I've seen most organizations, so I can confidently say that data is in silos, and how do we really consolidate that data and prepare an analysis becomes completely important. And for HR, especially for any function outside of the vertical functions, the business outcomes become extremely important, and they are looked at much more in rigor now than any time before, because any act, any activity, any action that you take has to be proportional to the revenue, profit, cost, ROI, and productivity. Essentially, what it is going to help you is analytics is going to help you to identify the missing link beyond what human intervention can look at. So anytime you think analytics, think data, first thing is you think a question and then think the methodology. I think halfway done by this. Using data across HR functions is a sign of progress. The more data you're able to use, correlate, and relate, I think once you start getting the unified database, then you will start seeing a lot of actions that can be put into place. But understand the barriers. Most often they're not lack support of HR analytics or lack of resources. Unfortunately, it was past, but moving forward, it is not going to become, because lack of resources is becoming the most important challenge, especially for the HR fraternity. But that's not going to be the case. Right now, what I am actually predicting is more than 25 to 30% of increase in workforce is going to happen in the entire HR fraternity, because it is all the more becoming important to stay connected with the smaller group of people when more people start working from home and start working remotely. So this is a good news for the entire HR fraternity. And more importantly, the budgets are going to be much, much higher for L&D. It is predicted around 40 to 45% of budget is given, but yes, the organizations do save somewhere else and are going to deploy in different kinds of L&D tools and L&D learning and development investments. But you have to start somewhere. Where do you start? Either you can wait to become the Python experts and then start using the data, or you actually start using the data with Excel and a visualization tool like a Power BI, right? As an example. A, you have a data. B, during the training, you'll understand how to put the data together. 3, if I already have the data together, how do I use a visualization tool? And 4, how do I draw actionable insights for delivering it to the business so that overall it helps the business to grow? Yes, there are so many tools. R is an open tool, which is used more for some more statistics, which is not possible using Excel. However, you start with Excel, you start understanding the what you call the visualization, and then slowly graduate into R. If you are very good and love coding, right? I think you don't love coding, so you have chosen this field. But if you love coding, then you can start looking at Python. You can look at SAS and SPSS and many more sophisticated tools. So the training objective, or the training that we have put together for HR analytics, is to make you help use the data to draw actionable insight, period. You have a question, you have a data, you will know how to use the models, or how to use the functions in Excel to make sure you get the outcomes, and how does it help your respective functions grow. HR analytics certification and expected outcome, introduction of analytics across the functions within HR, right? So you have L&D, you have recruitment, and so on and so forth, data understanding, and so on and so forth. As the session completes, the training session, not this session, as the training session completes, you will understand that that is a foundation for moving up into learning advanced analytics. These are some of the topics that will be covered for the HR analytics. And More importantly, everybody in the HR function can participate in this irrespective of the education background, be it a fresher or be it an experienced person. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a pause right now. Okay. As we have approached the 6:30 timeline, and I'll be more than happy to take questions. And I see a lot of questions. Uh,
Yes,
Smita ma'am,
uh,
with
yes,
permission.
Ms. Sharma, if you are done with your presentation, then we can move forward to the questions.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
kind of done with the presentation
Okay.
because seeing the kind of questions, I may take up a case study too. So,
Okay, fine. So I will read out the questions to you from the beginning. Okay. Mm. Yes, so the first question I think is from Ankita. Ankita asks, in your experience with predictive analysis, can you indicate what kind of training is the need of the hour?
yeah, as I told you, the need of the hour is to understand, first of all, how can you predict anything, right? It depends upon in which role you are in. If you're in talent acquisition, you'll have to learn in terms of the cost of reduction of acquisition. So if you're into L&D, you should probably understand as to how do you have the training ROI done. So it depends upon which function you are in, but this will be the starting point.
Okay.
Ankita, does that address your question or would you want to?
Ankita, if you want more, you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Sharma. I am actually, I think I got my answer. For L&D professionals, you mentioned ROI, and linking that to your training programs. That is an essential.
Yeah.
But my question actually was that nowadays we see a lot of training programs being peddled, being sold, or being advertised. Lots of it comes as behavioral modification. Lots of it comes into ways to enhance your personality, your behavior, things like that. So for organizations, what do you think is of value right now in the current scenario? That was my question. That was what I intended to ask.
Yeah, see, I will give you a three-dimension view on this. Organizations who never tried work from home, okay, they have a completely different challenge. But there are organizations who are very well refined or very well structured their KPIs in terms of how to measure their people. They have a different challenge in terms of in the new avatar of the distributed working or work from home, how do they adapt? Now, soft skills, how people present and what they do is it's an ongoing process. Whether you work from home or you work in a commercial place, it's all the same. So to answer your question, maybe for in the current context of the post-COVID, I found few things extremely important. One, there are a lot of people coming up with the soft skills training. Now it depends upon an individual to choose what kind of soft skills he or she is required, right, to get trained. The second thing that people are coming up mostly is, I want to get upskilled, what do I do? I think upskilling does not mean only on the analytics side. Upskilling could be on transformation, on project management, and so many other fronts in terms of upskilling. Upskilling of domain, a lot of demand is coming on the healthcare side of it in terms of how do we really manage healthcare. Right? So when you ask me what kind of training is the need of the hour, the need of the hour is how effectively can each one of us continue to be productive or more productive in the current context of distributed working or working remotely. This is going to be a challenge. I have seen certain people who are extremely good in producing their outcomes when they sit in the office and then send what they have, but actually uh, are not able to figure out how do they present their own finding when they have a remote working. I think that is what probably L&D should focus is make sure that people are able to feel each other when they work remotely. Feel for somebody else's work, appreciate somebody else's work, right? And so on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an excellent answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankita and Mrs. Sharma. So the next question is from Pratima. Pratima wants to know what analytics are specifically required for trainers.
Good question. For trainers, unfortunately, that's one area where measuring an outcome becomes next to impossible unless you see the behavioral change. It starts there. Yeah. So for trainers, competency mapping, scoring, and gap analysis. This is extremely important. While everybody wants to get trained on everything, and a trainer wants to impart knowledge on everything, these two are reality. But competency mapping, that is, how do I understand what is the existing competency of an individual? How can I score it? How do I understand the gap analysis? And then start looking at, okay, how do I really look at what the trainees require? Once you know what the trainees require, as a trainer, you can provide a better service to the trainees. So every trainer should know how to do a competency mapping or a scoring and gap analysis. Yep.
Okay. That was really, a very interesting answer, because that was a question I had in mind too. Okay, my question was about the tools that you recommend, and after I asked this question, it was a part of your session where you went through it quite comprehensively. So I'll move to the next question by Shilpi. So Shilpi wants to know, do vendors and consultants benefit from this knowledge to bring intervention in line to objectives shared? And if so, as the data cannot be connected, as an external entity, how do you manage this?
I will
Shall
have
I read it out again?
Yeah, I'll have to reconfirm my understanding. What I'm reading
Okay,
there is.
I'll ask Shilpi. Shilpi, can you ask your question yourself, please?
All right. So, Mrs. Sharma, my question was, like, I am an independent vendor. All right. I train for companies. So, as an external vendor, how do I get the analytics, so that I can understand what is going within the organization and then help in the intervention? But I think your previous answer gave a lot of, light on it. But still, if you would care, can you just suggest more things so that as an external vendor, how can I become stronger in this particular arena?
Okay, then what you do, you start asking the questions. Hey, Mr. Company, hey, so-and-so company, you want me to train your people. Okay? If you want me to train your people on ABC, then I would want to have a data first. And then I will tell you whether these people require this training or not. Most often than not, we end up picking up whatever the organization wants us to train. The change could be, if you're confident on your analytics methodology on how to analyze these things, you will ask them simple questions in terms of, can I get the data of the current competency of the individuals in the area that you want me to train them? Example, if it's going to be a technical training, yeah, you can have different levels of their skills, which the companies will map and give you, right? If it is soft skills, then they would say, can you teach all of us to become thought leaders, right? I've seen a lot of companies doing this, unfortunately, right?
Correct.
Now, we are anyway scratching our heads for the thought and also looking for the right kind of leaders. And what is thought leadership for a team member, right? So they end up asking these kind of things. Then your ability to demystify the question that the person is asking becomes important. Then you have to believe that data is available. You have to believe that data is available. Somewhere it is available. Now, if you want a positive outcome, let's talk data. If you want me to do a checklist, then let us start training tomorrow, right? I think that approach will help, provided you know how to use the data that is being given.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that sounds very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma.
Welcome.
Smita?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so Ankita has a question about analytic product that we can use. There's also another question. I think probably both can be put together. So the name is not visible here. For recruitment consultants, what analytics are required? And Ankita asks whether you have an analytics product that we can use, or would you recommend something that we can use?
Excellent. First of all, product, right, is nothing but a tool. Don't get carried away with a product. There's nothing called junk in and junk out, especially in analytics. The fundamental difference between a reporting tool and analytics is, if you take a reporting tool like your SAP or Oracle or any reporting tool, whatever you enter as a junk in is given out in form of a report as a junk out. So that is the reporting tool. So that's a product. Analytic products are coming, they are all coming with a pre-built, algorithms that are already built, and you can use those kind of tools. MS Excel itself is an analytics tool. R is an analytics tool. SAS is an analytics tool, right? So what I am telling is, if you have never used any tool in the past, start with using Excel. That in itself is a good analytics tool to look at all your data. And visualization tool is important. There are many visualization tools. I prefer Power BI and Tableau over anything. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's nothing called product. These are all products, but you should actually use. And if someone says that your problem can be solved with a touch of a button, think twice, because this is not a BI tool. We are talking of analytics. It will be iterative. Your answers will come out. Sometimes your answers may not match to what you really think it is. So for some, look at this. If I have just 2 more minutes, in terms of predicting attrition, this is a classic case of how you identify the hotspots. Now, these are all the outcomes that you define and design, right? Whatever you have designed, you've actually bought it in terms of the data, right? Now you know who is going to attrite significantly based on who is already attrited, from which function, which department, what age group, what kind of person, right? Now you have to validate it. You have to validate all these things. So if this is the outcome that you are able to generate yourself, then the insight that you write is the domain expertise. So products are many. There's no product that can give you a junk in, junk out analytics product, because you're going to have your social media data, you're going to have your transaction data, everything coming into place. For you as an individual, it is important to understand, how do I make use of the data that I have and generate my own report, rather than depending upon the products that are available in the market. You can use them, no doubt about it, right? And especially for HR, there's so many products that are available. It's just, I would very sorry to use the word, it's just a question of exploitation. But if you know the data, what you want, and if you're able to use simple tools, and if you're able to get out your own insights, I don't think you need any external tool. Yep. Can you share an example of how a trainer can use analytics to show ROI? Yeah. Is that the question from Pratima? Should I answer it, or?
Yes, it's a question
Yes,
from
please.
me, Mr. Sharma.
Yes, please.
Okay, example of how a trainer can use analytics to show ROI, rather improve ROI. That's what you meant probably, right?
Yeah,
How to
yeah.
improve my
Yeah, to
return.
show ROI on the training that he or she has conducted to her clients.
Yes. So, first of all, when will you show an improvement? When you have a baseline. Now, the thing is, what training you are conducting, based on that, you should create a baseline, right? If you can give me one example of the kind of training, I'll be
I
very
don't know, I
happy.
lost my volume.
Hello? Am I audible?
Hello?
Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, can you name some training? Because training is such a vast thing, whether it is mission tools or, human behavior, right? So, can you just take which training? Tell me name of some training.
Um, eh, well, it could be, and it says soft skill training, or even simple training like a communication, or even or a technical training like a AI or ML based training. It could be anything that you can take as an example.
Excellent. So separate these two things fundamentally, right? Any soft skill involves a lot of subjectivity, right? One individual is trying to assess another individual in terms of the competency of email writing etiquette or in terms of communication skill. Okay. Say classic example is communication is all about perception. It's not what I say, it is what you take, how you take. So organizations have some ways and means of assessing an individual on some scale. First, get that scale right. Am I assessing my employee on a scale of 1 to 10, on scale of 1 to 5? And do I have any set rules in terms of to say, okay, this kind of communication is better than other kind of communication? That's a very tricky in a soft skill. But you should be able to ask all these questions and get the baselining done. That's for the soft skill training, baselining. For the technical training also, there are various methods or ways and means to find out whether the person is skilled in E1, E2, E3, E4 levels or whatever levels each organization has. Get that level baselining done. Then look at the training that you are going to provide. As long as the training that you provide, there is a pre-assessment before the training and a post-assessment after the training. And if you are able to map these two, then you know your training is successful. I have a thumb rule. If 80% of the trainees demonstrate a behavior or show an improvement in their technical skill, then the training is successful. Whatever be the percentage of increase, right? So I have a lot of data on that. That's my area of interest, but I'll be more than happy to share with you, but in the interest of time right now. But you have to ask only one question. Am I trying to train somebody where there's no baseline, or am I helping somebody to create a baseline and then train and look at the post-training scenario? Trust me, 80% of organizations do not do a post-training assessment seriously and periodically. Communication skill, if you train them today, doesn't mean that tomorrow morning somebody is going to become an expert, right? But as long as you are able to put it in your own contract as a consultant saying that I want to see the behavioral change or a communication change or the technical skill change in 3 to 6 months time, then you are in the game. Yep.
I think
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
amazing. So, Mr. Sharma, there's one more last question. I would read it out. In the current situation, is there anything that the people from traditional HR background need to upgrade themselves on? So, this is a question.
Yeah. So
Yes.
traditional, so let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Traditional HR, as I am understanding, is people who are HR generalists who are trying to do everything, or a traditional HR is having whatever they have and trying to take decisions on that. Because that's an important question.
True.
So as what I know about traditional HR is, get that fellow in front of me in half an hour, I will tell you whether he is trainable or not. This is traditional HR, right? My gut tells me if you recruit this guy, definitely he's going to be an asset to the organization. That is traditional HR.
Mm-hmm.
I know most of the people require soft skill training. That is traditional HR. Now, if you look at the beauty of the 3 sentences that I made, all the 3 sentences do not have any kind of data. So the first upgrading that is required would be in terms of learning how to use the data, and in every sentence as possible, as much possible, use data to substantiate the statement that you are making. That would be the upgrade according to me. If you say 23% of the people in your unit require communication skills upgrade because 75% of the time these people do not know how to write an email to their customer. There are 87% of the people who don't put thanks and regards. There are probably 42% of people who just put a smiley in a most serious email that goes to a customer. Now look at the difference. If this is what you're going to do, then which means you have already upgraded yourself. Return on investment on training is going to be the most important element in the post-COVID situation. Now, it is directly going to be impacting the business, the operation efficiencies, and the behavioral changes that employees demonstrate over time. And I will take up this case study definitely in the training session, because I know most of the L&D want to know what is that one magic trick that I can go back to business or go back to CFO and say, hey, you know what? I can give you 10% return on investment. I can give you 8%. I can give you 100%, right? So if you have to get to that magic number, how do you get to that magic number? I will definitely put in this case study in the training. Yep.
I think that sounds amazing. And this particular, the way we have ended is what is going to trigger our next step, to get ourselves empowered in this regards. So thank you, Mr. Sharma. It has been an amazing session. A lot of light bulbs have kind of lightened up. I'm sure we all have enjoyed your session. So would you like to say something about your training that you're going to impart?
Yeah. So the training essentially is designed to be for 5 days, rather 10 hours, or weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. The first thing, because now time is the essence, right? Now, we are going to cover all the basics of analytics using Excel and advanced Excel and data visualization tool of BI, right, of Power BI, and will be very hands-on practice sessions with the case studies that cover most of the HR functions. So you people may want to understand one thing, that I am not a professional training consultant. I come with a corporate background of having been there, lived it, and done it types. So my focus is all in terms of how practically we can use in a daily life. That's what we are going to teach you, right? And also certify, okay? And you have options of taking HR analytics courses around 20,000, 50,000 rupees also available. That is your call. But because of the current lockdown situation, I am trying to give back my learning as much as possible. So I've actually put it at 2,500 rupees for the entire course, which means you're hardly spending around 250 rupees per hour for the 10 hours, right? So any questions that you have on the training, anybody?
Yeah, so there's one question regarding your training is, will independent trainers benefit by taking the course? That's Neela asking you, Mr. Sir.
Yes, 1 second. Look at this, look at this, look at this. If you upskill yourself, then you're adding value to yourself. First thing, as an independent trainer, you can go and ask a question to your customer saying that, can you get me this data? I will get back to you in terms of what you need. There's a big difference. Instead of taking up a training which an organization is giving, you can go and say, I will tell you what training is required. Now you become a training consultant in the first place, right? Second thing is, you will know how to use data at ease, right? In terms of, this is what the training is all about. This is the, look at a consultant. How many of you really know how to make a math in terms of positioning your price? No, I don't know. Do you know what is your worth in terms of pricing, right? How do you really arrive at pricing for a particular training, right? Now here the exponential earning is all about that. It's all about how do you really price your training. And if you have to price your training in a particular way, how are you going to use the data of the organization to go back to the organization and say, this is how I'm pricing myself, because this is what your current state is, and this is going to be your future state in terms of learning. Yeah, especially independent trainers, Now training has become commoditized. Unfortunately, it should not be, but they have commoditized much faster than anybody. Because yesterday someone came to me and said they can do an artificial intelligence training for 800 rupees. Sorry, I don't know how it happens, but I'm just saying, right? So independent trainers, this is extremely important to know what is your worth, what is your value, right? We will cover that also as part of understanding the value delivery. Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. We had a fantastic session from you. I think that's all for today, folks, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Please write back if in case you're interested or your friends are interested. Okay?
Sure. Thank you. And we'll end the session now. Thank you.
Thank you.